4 months ago, I released a video on my channel that I unmistakably led some people to believe it was a review of the Canon EOS R8. And a lot of people since then have been asking for a thorough review, especially for people who are trying to get into photography. Well, I am pleased to announce this is that video. Now, for some reason, I decided to shoot this outside on one of the coldest days of the year, but where I'm going, I think it's gonna be worth it. You gotta do what you can for the shot, so. I'm about to walk over a suspended bridge over this waterfall, but just before we get over there, let me just kind of tell you a couple of things as to why I think beginners should get the EOS R8 and why it makes a phenomenal camera to begin your photography or videography journey with. So the first thing is the R8 is a full frame camera. Now that is kind of surprising for a camera of this size and price point, which is another plus, and especially the size can be a plus, especially if you're a run and gun kind of shooter and you just need as minimal equipment as possible. The full frame sensor is going to get you a lot of the crispy images that you would typically get on higher end camera. It's got a fully articulating screen, so if you've got to shoot in a bunch of different weird angles like I normally do, if you watch any of my shorts, it gives you a whole lot of flexibility in trying to get that shot and still seeing what it is you're shooting. Now, one of the things that I really appreciated more as I started going through last year and really diving into video is that this one actually shoots in 10-bit. Now, if you don't know what that means, it basically gives you a whole lot more color range than an 8-bit camera. And the way you know if you have an 8 or a 10-bit camera is if you're shooting in low light scenarios and you look at where there's color on the screen versus where there's darkness, typically that middle section is going to be pixelated because the camera does not have enough information or can't register enough information to fill in those borders or those edges with color. A camera that shoots in 10-bit video actually will fill that in because it can register all the colors to fill in that gap. So you're not going to get all those weird pixelated areas, especially in low light conditions. I will hit on this in just a moment as to why this could be a good or a bad thing, but this camera shoots in 4K up to 60 frames per second. I'm not really sure why a lot of people are going to need that in the beginning, especially as you're starting out. But I will talk about why that might be a deficit a little later in this video, but that is the thing. If you want to go up to 60 frames per second, we'll have at it. So I arguably picked one of the coldest times to ever have done this. There are a ton of steps that I did not expect to climb. I've been going down this whole time, so I'm gonna be I'm gonna be in pain walking up. It's worth it though. I think where I'm going is gonna be super worth it. Super pretty already. I'm going down to the bottom of the gorge to finish reviewing this camera. Okay, I had to get in the car, and it's actually another day because it got really cold, and frankly I think the waterfall was a little too loud. Overall though, Great camera for if you're getting into photo or video. I think it's a great place to start. It offers a lot of the high-end features that you would find in cameras that you really won't find on the cheaper end of the camera product lines. I did mention earlier in this video that there's an issue shooting on this camera at 4K 60 frames per second. The issue with this camera shooting at that rate is that it overheats in 13 minutes. Now, I know that there are some solutions out there. Just keep that in mind. At 60 frames per second, if you're needing to shoot at that high frame rate, you are going to be overheating the camera. Another thing too is, for some reason, Canon decided to actually put the audio and mic jacks and a bunch of other things right there, kind of in the way of the screen. So if you're rotating the screen, the jacks are going to get in your way, so you almost have to adjust the screen the way you want it and then put it into place. You can't move it around if you've got something plugged in there. So it's not going to hinder the recording process, it's just annoying. So just keep that in mind as well. Now again, for a beginner, this is not going to matter a whole lot, especially as you're learning your way around the camera world. But this camera does shoot at 6 frames per second, so that's 6 frames per second at a mechanical shutter. I have found really early on I need a camera that goes faster than that. There is an alternative on this camera where you do shoot with an electronic shutter at 40 frames per second. Now, it will take about 3 to 5 seconds to resume and be able to go back to shooting. I have found that when I resorted back to using the electronic shutter to compensate for the lack of frames per second on the mechanical shutter, I missed a lot of shots that I really wanted while I was waiting for the shutter count to reset. So, not the biggest thing in the world, but just keep in mind that if you're trying to develop at a rapid pace, you're shooting events, you're shooting scenes that require a faster, high continuous shooting rate, this might not be it for you. I think overall, the pros are outweighing the cons in this scenario. This is a camera that I'm going to be recommending to anybody for as long as it is reliable until something better comes out. For this price point and the size, I can't really beat it. This will probably become a secondary camera for me where I will use as backups or maybe just to record B-roll, just extra things that I need. However, it has been a great launching off point to understand where this camera is deficient and now what products can fill in those gaps. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I've had a great time with this camera. I'm going to be using it for a little while longer as I narrow down on what I really want. I'll keep you guys updated as to what I ended up pivoting to from this camera, but all that to say, I would recommend this camera for sure. Well, that's gonna do it for us. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this review. Hope you guys enjoyed the scenery. We'll see you all next week, and don't forget, go tell a story.